Hey there, you're on the SpeakerPath. And this episode of the podcast, we're looking at introductions. How do people start their keynotes, their TEDx talks, and how do they grab our attention? And I've got Brian with me today to break some of these down. Hey, Brian.
Hey, I've never seen any of these before. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm so curious what you're going to think. I've browsed a lot of clips for you. So, all right. So what I want you to do first, Brian, is tell us, first of all, how your attention goes up and down as you're listening to these clips and how our messaging framework would apply. And if you think, could these people have optimized anything? What they do well? What can we learn? So some of these things.
Fantastic. I'm excited to see them.
All righty. Here we go.
You're about to hold a plank. Just 60 seconds. You know it's coming. That tension in your core, the burn in your arms, the mental countdown ticking away. You're already thinking, I can't do this. I'm going to collapse at 30 seconds. Now, imagine you push through that feeling. You hold on. Maybe your body starts shaking. Your mind is screaming for you to stop. You tell yourself, just one more second. And you make it to 60, you're feeling pretty proud of yourself.
Okay, where are you so far, Brian?
Okay, so the first thing I love about this is that he really subverted the typical advice that we would give clients, which is you don't want to do any kind of demonstration immediately upon walking out, especially for a TEDx talk. It's being filmed. People in the future on YouTube are watching this. This seems like a talk that was given quite a while ago, based on the filming. I'm not sure what year it came out. And so we're in the future watching it as like an individual experience. So often if you do anything interactive, you break the immersion with the YouTube viewer in the future. When was this given?
5 months ago.
Oh, really? That recent?
Yes.
Okay, so just not particularly good lighting. Okay, that's fine. So that's fine. This is about the speaker, not the conference.
Yep.
So what I love about this, though, is that he hit the ground, which immediately grabs your attention.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just like, okay, I'm at least going to give him my attention for a second, which doesn't earn my engagement, but it does get my attention. What got my engagement was that he started performing the script. He started doing the script. And within 10 seconds, while holding the plank, and not only holding it, but deliberately letting his body go and then popping it back up, which meant he demonstrated to me that he had full command, not just of the speech, but of his entire performance. This was meticulously planned, rehearsed, prepared, and so I felt like I could relax as a viewer. I felt like I'm safe here, like I'm in good hands. Yeah. I don't know yet what the talk's going to be about, but surely it's going to be about some kind of resilience or toughness. And of course, if you've clicked on it, you already know the title, which has toughness in it, which helps you. It helps you through the opening experimental bit, not knowing exactly where it's going because you've got the title to fall back on, doesn't it?
So there's something interesting here. You said you love that it's rehearsed and that he's got the script down and he's kind of planned this performance. And a lot of the pushback that we get from potential clients and even clients as we work with them initially is that they don't want to sound too rehearsed, too performative. Where do you stand on that with this talk?
Yeah, where I stand on that is at no point did I guess I use the word performing. It's because I'm looking at it from a consultant's viewpoint, analyzing it.
It is a performance for sure, right?
But of course it is a performance, right? Because he dropped to the ground and started doing a plank and started doing a script. You could not have done that without rehearsal. So it didn't feel performative. Is I guess the difference is it didn't feel like he was, and now I'm acting, I'm doing a thing. Like there's a thing people do, which we watched the Emmys the other night for the first time in years, and one of the presenters, who was an otherwise iconic actor, gave this incredibly weird performative introduction to the categories, and I was just going, what are they doing? Just talk. Like it was very weird. which they would have never done in their actual acting because they're a great award-winning actor. So I didn't feel like he was acting in any performative way, but I knew that it was rehearsed. I knew that we was in good hands, that he wasn't winging this, because you simply could not have done what he did with that level of clarity and communication and seamlessness of ideas. Also coordinated with his body sagging and then coming back up at the exact same moment in the script that he talks about pushing through. Yeah. It just made me feel like, I don't know exactly where this is going, but I'm definitely willing to give it a shot.
Okay. All right, let's see a bit more and see if it buys your engagement.
But then you don't stop at 60 seconds. You don't stop at 5 minutes. You keep going for an hour, for 2 hours, and then 10 hours.
So I don't like how he did that bit. I don't like it because it was unnecessarily dragged out. I just watched the first 45 seconds or minute where he grabbed my attention. He did the performance. I know this is about toughness. It was impressive. He got an applause break, which is very hard to do at a TEDx filming. You very rarely hear it. The next words out of his mouth had to be the premise of the talk. It had to explicitly say, now that I've got your attention, he's got to answer the question I'm asking and everybody's asking, which is this worth my time? Right? That's the next question I'm asking. Is this worth my time? And he's now going, now imagine you do this for 30 seconds, a minute, an hour, 2 hours. I already can't imagine that. What are you talking about? I can't imagine doing what you just did, let alone an hour, 2 hours. So all he had to do, if he was going to do, imagine you did that for 10 hours, you just go right there. You go, now imagine you did that for 10 hours. That's what, and I assume he's going to, that's what so-and-so, some person, whether it's him or someone else, did.
Right.
Either that, or you have to just explicitly say what the talk is about right now before going into whatever story he feels like he's about to launch into. But that felt unnecessarily dragged out.
So a more economy of words is what you would suggest.
Yeah, which is ironic given that you just summed up the last 2 minutes of me talking in one sentence.
All right, let's see about the story that he's launching into.
And 10 seconds. That's exactly what George Hood did when he set the world record for the longest plank in history. A feat that most people would not believe possible. I met George 8 years ago when he set the record, at that time, 5 hours. And I'll tell you this, he just looked like the definition of mental toughness. The focus in his eyes was razor sharp, and he was drenched in sweat. He was hurting. You could see it in his face, feel it in his body. But he didn't stop. Later, I asked him, George, how do you do it? His answer surprised me. The plank is 90% mental. George told me he kept his mind busy.
What do you think?
Yeah, this is losing my interest. And it's losing my interest not because it's not interesting, but because I can't figure out how it's relevant to me yet. And now we've gone on way too long before answering the question, is this worth your time?
Yeah. We're 2.5 minutes in.
Right. We're 2.5 minutes and we still haven't established what's in it for me, the viewer. And if you know anything about, we're watching this in 2025, which is apparently when the talk actually came out. That is too long. Now, I assume if you're showing this to me that this talk was successful. You can do things wrong and be successful. We have no idea how much more successful it could have been if you had gotten some of this stuff right? This is not to say it was bad or it didn't work. It's to say, we don't know how much better it could have been, but you could have shaved a minute of that off because there was a few things. One, I didn't need to, there were a bunch of throwaway lines that were not necessary. And I'm trying to remember what they were because they were throwaway lines. They were lines that didn't add anything. One, he said, I met George back when he had done it for 5 hours. Well, it didn't matter if at the point you met him, it had been done for 5 hours or 10 hours. The point is this guy's superhuman and you met him. So I met George. Right? All you need to do is say, I met George. There was another line that was, something that most people would believe is impossible. It's like, yeah, we already got that. You said he did
Who does a
if you've ever
10-hour
tried to do a
plank?
plank, I've done 60. I worked my way up to it took me a month of my life every day to be able to do a 60-second plank. So you say 10 hours, I'm like, got it, impossible. Like, I almost don't believe you, impossible. So we don't need a line about how most people would view it's impossible. I got it. So there was a bunch of throwaway lines that dragged it down, but more to the point, he's talking about, I asked George how he did this. And it's like, is this a talk about how I can do a plank better? Why am I listening to a guy who did planks? He hasn't actually, I feel like whoever the speaker is, I don't know his name.
Jo Risser.
Joe. Mm-hmm. I feel like Joe probably thinks at this point that I think he's teaching the main lesson already. But he hasn't established the premise yet. He hasn't established for the audience what's in it for you. We're listening to this guy, George, because we're like thrice removed right now. I'm in the audience listening to you talk about another guy tell you about a lesson he learned, and I still don't know what I'm trying to solve. Mm-hmm. And so all of that got really convoluted, where if he had just gone, there are times in our life when it's not our physical strength, but our mental strength that get us through something. There are times in our life
that get us through a challenge, right?
where there's a challenge that seems impossible, mm-hmm. but other people have done it, and so there's got to be a way, mm-hmm. right? I met George some years ago. I met this guy George. He didn't just do a plank for a minute. He did a plank for 10 hours. And when I said, George, how did you do it? Like, you could have done the whole story in 20 seconds. With the premise leading up to it, and we could have been a minute and a half into the talk instead of 2.5 at this point.
Yeah. So it's almost like he's assuming that we know what the question is and what the lesson is, and he's kind of skipping that step.
Yes. It's a really classic speech writing mistake, which is just assuming the audience knows what the talk is about and cares what the talk is about, right, the same way that you do. Yeah. It's just like, never make that assumption.
Okay, let's see if he gets us there.
We often think of grit as that mental toughness that helps people achieve extraordinary things, like ultramarathoners finishing races with broken bones. But here's the twist. Grit isn't just about willpower. It's rooted in biology. And the most powerful indicator to date is a protein that we're just starting to understand, called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF.
Okay. I like the grit bringing up. We think of mental toughness as grit, but there's something else going on. See, that could have opened the loop for the talk if it had come a minute and a half ago or whatever, 2 minutes ago. How long is this talk overall? It's not a long talk.
It's 8 minutes 43, 8.5, like with intro and outro. Yeah.
Yeah. See, what's interesting about that is it's already a short talk, but a quarter of it has been wasted on stuff that we didn't need. I'm not saying this talk had to be shorter, but it feels like I've taken a long time with him already, even though it's only overall an 8-minute talk. And so part of this is, if you were giving a keynote, if I knew you were going to be on stage for an hour, mostly this intro would have been fine, because it would have been interesting enough, and I know I'm here for an hour, and I know that you're going to expand upon this. But if it's a TED Talk, if I'm looking at it on YouTube and I know it's a 9-minute talk, if I'm 3 minutes in and I still don't know what's in it for me, it's more than a third of the talk. So I like that he's bringing up a paradigm shift. He's bringing it up earlier than we would normally do. And the reason that we bring it up in the second half of the talk, often about 2/3 of the way into a talk, is because we spend the first 2/3 making sure the audience is fully on board. So I think the strongest part of this was the first 60 seconds. It was really masterful. It pulled me in. And then he just, like, second by second, just kind of sentence by sentence, lost my interest. And it's a simple tweak. It would have just been a sentence about mental toughness, or more likely the actual problem, which is there are times in our lives when we encounter a challenge that seems impossible, but because other people have done it, we know that it's not. What are we missing?
Yeah, the what's in it for me, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So this talk was published 5 months ago, and it's got 1.9 million views already.
Well, there you go.
I would say it's interesting that he made that assumption because it's somehow confirmed, right, by these metrics that people do kind of already care and they don't need to be sold into it. But it's true. What was the potential that we'll never know, right?
Yes, and also views are interesting. Views can be misleading because that hook at the beginning could have been enough for people to have spread it like wildfire.
Yeah.
We have no idea because we don't get access to the back end of these metrics like we do with our own YouTube channel. We don't know if everybody dropped off after 60 seconds. YouTube counts it as a view after 30. And that opening 60 would have gotten everybody through it. So for all we know, 1.9 million people watched it, but only, 30,000 of them made it past the first, 90 seconds. Like we have no, I doubt that's the case. My guess is if I kept watching it, that it's really interesting with some good stuff. It's also broadly motivational, which are the kind of talks that tend to have the widest reach, of course.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to be mentally tough, right?
Yeah. And I think that he's got something else going for him, which is we are in a zeitgeist in 2025 when there's been quite a bit of a pull back to the more, I think lately people are looking a little bit more for that old school style motivation simply because the world has started to feel so overwhelming and that there's something to be said for this like you can do it style. But he's not bringing the like Tony Robbins screaming machismo that that like rah rah go go. He's bringing kind of a quiet confidence
it's
to
very
it.
grounded, right?
Yeah,
there's
like I like
science
him.
here. Like there's reason to trust this person.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I'll reveal something now, which is when you put this up, I didn't know you were going to play this clip, and I have not seen this talk, but I have watched the first 90 seconds of it. I
Okay.
remembered having watched it as soon as he planked, and I know I never finished it.
Interesting.
you know,
yeah. Okay.
Which doesn't mean I'm right, but
Yeah.
that's,
No. Absolutely. Yeah.
that's my analysis.
Yeah. Super cool. Okay. Great. Thank you for this one. Let's see what is next.
As a kid, do you remember the absolute adrenaline rush of hearing the ice cream truck? I lived at the top of my neighborhood, so I took it as my civic duty to hop on my bike and alert the rest of the kids. Looking back on this experience, did I care how I looked, frantically knocking on people's doors during dinner time, drenched in sweat? No. Did I care how I sounded, shrieking, "The ice cream truck is coming! Smash your piggy banks! Grab your flavors!" No. Why didn't I care? Because I knew I had critical information.
Okay. I'm going to stop for a second.
Yeah, this is beautiful. So I love this introduction. One, to your work, she's very grounded and she's very conversational, which is what you're going for in a TEDx talk. Conversational is not always the vibe you want in a keynote. If you're in an audience of 2,000 people, conversational can come off as nonchalant or dull.
Yeah. Not lifting the energy in the room, right? In such a big room.
Right. But here, it's clearly a small room to begin with, an intimate room. You could just tell from the clapping at the beginning that it was just, 20 people in the room, right? I mean, it's a small room, so she's matching that energy. But more importantly, when you're doing a TEDx talk, you're sending it into the future, like we've discussed before. This is for future YouTube viewers. In a conversation, like the tone that you and I have talking with each other right now, this is the tone you want to adopt. It's very hard for a lot of speakers, especially speakers who are used to being on big stages, to find the right tone because you kind of have to ignore the live audience and play to the future YouTube viewer. So she did that right away. So that's my comment on the presence. Do you have anything to add to that before we talk about the actual message?
Yeah, I love the warmth and energy that she has. So she's doing like both power and warmth really well. I don't have a feeling that she's putting on a show, like an act. I feel like she's really sharing this part of her childhood memories. And at the same time, I get energized because of the way she's doing it. Like her voice is loud enough. Her gestures are firm and open. She's kind of leaning forward as she's saying, I had critical information, right? So she's doing all of these signaling bits in a really good way. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and comparing and contrasting with the first one that we watched with Jo, his opening 60 seconds was much more of an obvious performance or an explicit performance, dropping down to do a plank and talking through it. But neither of them felt like they were being performative. Neither of them feels over the top, like they're acting badly, which is what untrained actors, always come across as. Both of them feel grounded and conversational, and it's also clear in different there's different energies, but it's clear to me that she is also rehearsed down to the inflections.
She knows everything that she has to do. There's no hesitation anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And you can tell she's rehearsed because she knows the moves in the story. There were no extra details that didn't need to be there. She expressed the right emotion and reflected the right. She embodied the energy of a line that she would have in the story. So
exactly, and with really good economy of words, I found.
Yes. And so to that point, the message itself. So she opened with a story, which is classic. Like most people have heard, you should open with a story. It's bad advice, not because you shouldn't open with a story, but because most people don't know why they should open with a story and what kind of a story and what the purpose of the story is. She's opened with a story that was not about her, which is what I love about it. It is about her in the sense that it's something that happened to her. Like, she's not really telling us about a very, very specific instance. She's not like on January, or it would have been summer, on June 8th, 1991 or whatever. But she's telling us about something that happened to her in a way that has a universal experience.
Could be any one of us.
Could be any one of us. And do you remember, was I think her first line, do you remember hearing the ice cream truck or something like that? It's not my favorite way to get into a story. I would have preferred saying, I'm 8 years old, I'm sitting in my living room, and I hear it. Yeah. It's the ice cream truck. I would have preferred that. I think it would be more present. But she was warm and conversational, so she gets it across. What's more interesting about her intro is that throughout the story, I can already feel hints of the message she's here to deliver because she's using language that you would not normally use to talk about the ice cream truck coming. She's using...
And pauses. She pauses really strategically, like, because I had critical information. Like,
right.
You know that there's something about it just in the way that she plants it. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And so she's using the kind of language and phrases that you can feel are going to be important later and are going to be about the actual topic, which we don't exactly know yet, although the title of the talk is The Secret to Great Public Speaking. Yeah. So presumably this is a talk about public speaking, which means I can filter this story through, and she's asking questions like, was I worried about how I looked? And I'm like, did I care how I looked? It's like, okay. So she's going to be talking about public speaking. Did I care how I looked? Maybe she's going to be making a point. Like I can engage with the topic already.
Lots of dropped hints. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Breadcrumbs. We love it.
Yeah. Let's see where she takes it.
That they wanted to know. So public speaking wasn't about me. It was the information I had that I knew could serve them. With AI on the rise, to say lightly, public speaking and human-to-human connection is becoming increasingly important. Sure, you can go on ChatGPT to help craft an email to your boss asking for a raise. But what about when she calls you into her office to discuss? You can't interrupt her mid-sentence and go to AI and be like, line? Public speaking is becoming increasingly more important. Whether it is giving a presentation to your peers, talking to your spouse, or working up the courage to call your favorite restaurant for takeout because they're not on Uber Eats.
Okay, good moment to pause. Okay, so what do you think about the way that she continued?
Okay. I thought she almost had it. I thought she almost had it.
What did she do well? What would you have upgraded?
Yeah. So what she did well is she made both a physical and energetic pivot from story to frame the talk to, and now here's what the talk's about. I could literally feel in her energy and see in her movement that she was going to change from story to message, which is great. It's we love that technique. I just worked with one of our speakers on that recently who's opening with a story, and it's kind of a heavy story. And it was like, how do you cold go from that into an introduction? It's like literally move different, take a step or two to this, towards this side, just physically show that you're in a different space so the audience is emotionally a different space. So she did that. That was great. She also started to make the stakes. We call this the stakes. Like, what is at stake if you don't pay attention to this talk? What is at stake if you don't take my advice or follow me on this journey? She started talking about what happens if you go into a meeting with your boss and you can't go like line, from ChatGPT, which was a little bit of a weird thing to say. Line was, I would have looked for something else to say in that moment as a joke, because line doesn't really make sense. Talking to ChatGPT.
I think to people who are familiar with theater, that might make sense, but they're a very small niche, right? That's what you would do if you're on stage and you forgot your lines and there's a person backstage who can kind of whisper the next line to you.
I probably, if I was going to make a ChatGPT reference, which I probably wouldn't have because it makes it harder for this talk to live further into the future. Because 5 years from now, is ChatGPT still a thing? Does anybody care anymore?
Could
We
say
don't know.
AI or AI assistant or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, if you are going to mention ChatGPT, if I was going to go for that joke, I probably, top of my head, would have, instead of saying line, which is an acting reference, I would have said something like, okay, so you're a communication specialist. I'm in a meeting with, right? I would have done a prompt out loud.
Right.
Like that, the way that we all prompt.
Right.
Like if you're going to assume people know what ChatGPT is, then also assume they know how to prompt it. So
wouldn't that have been really long though, in the middle of that?
It would have been if you played it all the way out, but not if you let the audience get the bit and you cut it off. So if you just went, you're in a, so you're going to a meeting with your boss and they asked you a tough question and you don't have ChatGPT there. You can't go, hi, you're a communication consultant and you're in a meeting with your boss, right? That's all you'd have to do.
Sure. Yeah.
Nonetheless, that's not the main concern. The main concern I had is before she did that, if I remember, it was exactly the line before she did that. She said, human connection is becoming very important or so important.
Public speaking is becoming more important. Yes.
More important. Public speaking is becoming more important. That is an assertion. It's an assertion, which means it is something that she is claiming is true. It is a deep-seated belief that she holds.
Right.
The problem with that is she's making it before she's established a premise. So you're going to hear this come up a lot when we do these. So she hasn't yet said, what do we want? What does the audience want? Or what are they struggling with? Before she made an assertion. Because if you say public speaking is becoming increasingly important, that's an argument you're making. The audience member, I don't necessarily believe that. You believe that. You're a public speaking coach. You're incentivized to believe that. So I don't trust you when you say that, and I have no context for it. If she had simply saved that line and she repeated it, so I actually think it wasn't supposed to be there. I think that was a glitch. She repeated it. She did the stakes, and then she repeated that line almost word for word. I think it was meant to be after it because it's where it should have been. And also, she's a public speaking coach who's actually relatively she's not relatively. She's very well respected. I know people personally who have worked with her and deeply respect her. Great reputation. I don't know her personally. My guess is that she knew that line was supposed to come after the stakes. Because if you had established that first, imagine going into a meeting with your boss and blah, blah, blah. Or imagine you're having a fight with your spouse and blah, blah, blah. If you do that first, you establish the problem that the audience has. And then after it, you can make the claim that These are actually public speaking skills. They're increasingly important. So just
Okay.
wrong order. We talk about this a lot. Right ideas, wrong order.
Let's see how it goes next.
Public speaking is the fuse that brings us all together. It's also the gateway to opportunity, the first step in a multi-million-dollar deal, or a partner saying yes to a proposal, or landing your dream opportunity, was someone out there who knew how to deliver what they wanted to say. So why do people fear public speaking more than they fear sharks, spiders, and heights? Or as Jerry Seinfeld says, most people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy at the funeral. Because public speaking is one of the most vulnerable, exposed human experiences. Personally, I blame school spelling bees.
Oh, missed opportunity.
Yeah, you first.
Few things. If you're gonna quote a comedian, you have to actually perform the joke. Otherwise, just don't bother. It was a wasted. She'd made her point with sharks and heights and whatever else. If you're gonna quote Seinfeld, it's a very famous quote. It's also such a cliche at this point. It's been quoted so many times. If you're gonna do it, perform it. Otherwise, cut it. But the real missed opportunity here was she asked the core question: why are people more afraid of public speaking than sharks and heights and death and whatever else? That's the core question of this talk. Now, I think there are better questions you could have asked at that point. I think that is a question that people kind of think they know the answer to already. So I'm concerned that it's less of an open loop and more of a closed loop, only because people think they know the answer to this. Like, yeah, it's scary. Lots of people. Like, I think it's too easy of an answer. But let's say that was the question. She asked the question and then literally immediately gave the answer. The purpose of the core question in the introduction of a talk is to open a loop in people's minds. And when I say the core question, I'm borrowing this phrase from our colleague Tamsin Webster, who I've worked with for years. She's one of the co-founders of the core messaging discipline with me and Francisco and some other folks. Tamsin came up with this phrase, core question, to describe the question your talk serves as the answer to. It's the question your talk. So if somebody asked that question, somebody could answer with, I don't know, but I know you need to watch this talk, right? Or actually, there's a talk that you need to see that answers that question, right? Same thing if you're writing a book. The core question is, what's the question that this book serves as the answer to, right? She asked the core question, why are people more afraid of public speaking than sharks and heights and death and whatever else? This is not the time to answer it. This is the time to back up and start giving some context and fleshing out the surrounding information or the landscape of this topic, while the audience starts to try to answer it in their own minds and not know if they've got it right, because that's called an open loop and that's engagement. If you immediately give the answer, oh, that's it, right? I don't have to engage with you now. It was just a missed opportunity.
For me, there was a moment when she says there was someone, so behind every great business deal, there was someone who knew how to deliver what they had to say. And I wanted her so badly to deliver critical information, to have a callback to the intro. I so much wanted that, because that would have kind of clicked, and then she wouldn't even have had to ask a question. Like, it was kind of unspoken, right? Like, okay, so how do I deliver critical information?
Yeah,
so yeah,
that's right. And you could have left it at that, and the callback would have worked, or you could have even tagged it if you're. And she's good at humor for the most
so
part.
How do we do that, or something much simpler than why do we fear public speaking?
Yeah, right. Someone who is able to show up at the right time with critical information. The ice cream truck is here. Right? Like it was such an easy. It was there. Yeah, you're right.
It was right there, and it left us wanting more.
Yes, and I have no idea if she had help writing this talk. My experience with experts is they have a very hard time going to experts in the thing they're an expert in. Yeah. My guess is she had eyes on it, but not real proper support. My guess is she didn't hire someone like her to do for her what she does for other people. I've always said if I ever gave a second TEDx talk, I would hire my own team right? Like I would hire you and Francisco, like,
Yeah.
or I might even go outside of my own company. I might go hire Tamsin or somebody because doing it for yourself is just so very hard. And you have a blind spot with things like that where it wouldn't probably have even occurred to her to notice that. But on the outside, it's so obvious, just like it's obvious to her with her clients when they miss things, right? Yeah. So I have no idea. Maybe she did have help and whoever helped her missed it, but yes, there was an opportunity.
Could well be. We don't know. I do want to say it's a great talk. It's a shame that, again, we're 2.5 minutes in out of an 8-minute talk where we kind of know where it's leading, but it could have been a lot shorter. And it is a successful talk. It's got
500,000 views or something, right?
Yeah, 500,000 views in 2 months. So that's incredible.
She's doing fine. Doesn't need my help.
Really well done. And just on a personal note, I love the message that she brings. This idea, I won't spoil too much, but the fact that it's not about being confident, I really love her perspective. So it's really a couple of missed opportunities there that could have made this talk even better.
Yeah, and let's say again with the first one with Jo with nearly 2 million views, and this one with, is it Jess? With 500,000 views. These talks are doing very well. They certainly don't need our help. But we're not, at no point are we claiming that we know better than them. We're simply saying, like, the biggest NFL stars and NBA stars and football, for the non-Americans in the room, stars, they all still have coaches and consultants. They all do for every aspect. You don't get to be the best by stopping learning. You get to be the best by doing the 1% tweaks. Like both Jo and Jess are giving talks in the top, I would say 2% of all the TEDx talks we've ever watched. The question is, what would it take to go from that to the top 0.5%, the top 0.1%, which is not necessarily about more views. It's about what would it have taken to make this talk that much better within that margin, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. And now people are going to think that I have shared these talks with you in advance because
oh no,
you mentioned elite athletes, and the next talk that we're going to see is from an elite athlete coach.
Oh, great.
I'm curious what you think of this one.
Okay, I have a question for all of us. You ready? Is all winning success? Oh.
I'm just going to stop right there.
Oh, it's so disappointing.
Say more.
All right. I'm glad you stopped right away because I was like, mental note, come back to that. Okay. Why did I just breathe a huge disappointed sigh there? Because one, if you're gonna ask a question, just ask the question. I don't remember what it was now. What was the actual question? Is all success good?
Is all winning success?
Is all winning success? Just ask the question. Like asking a question was one of the classic intros. The 3 pieces of advice most people get for an introduction to their talk: ask an intriguing question, share a surprising statistic, or tell a story. Right? Those 3 things. There's other ways, but those are the 3 that people hear. Question. Great. We love a question. We talked about the core questions earlier. And that actually is kind of like a core question. It's like, is all winning success? I actually don't know if I know the answer to that. I have a gut feeling, but I'm curious to see where this goes. If you're going to ask a question, just ask. She said, okay. And she like there was some like big thing. I'm not convinced she's actually nervous. It felt, I don't know. Maybe she is nervous, but if she is nervous, it didn't, I don't know. It was very confusing. It felt like the TED could have just cut after that too, because it was unnecessary.
That's true. A lot can be done in editing.
Weird that if it's going to be, it was recorded, there was any reason to put that in there. But she said, like, can we ask a question, or I'm going to ask a question, with some very weird phrasing where she asked permission of the audience to ask a question. If you can ask a question, just ask a question. My least favorite thing, you've heard me, I've ranted on this, I've written articles on it so many times. You cannot begin before you begin.
I quote you on that. I mean, seriously, it is so difficult for people to do. A lot of people feel like they need a preamble to like a little warm up. right?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question that warms you up. And then you ask the question rather than starting cold, which is what it's called, right? Cold. Like you need to be able to do that.
It would be like if you were at like to see a concert pianist and they walked out on stage and everybody applauded and we stopped applauding, the spotlight's on them, the room is silent, and then they did a scale to warm up before they opened their piece. That would be crazy. You can't begin before you begin. Whatever the first words are out of your mouth, that is the beginning of your talk. So make it count. You get more power on the first line than basically anything else in the talk. So if you're going to ask a question, imagine, oh God, look at this stage. I mean, can you imagine if you walked out there.
And at TED Global.
At TED Global with the spotlight and the giant red dot and the audience, the applause stops and you just went, is all winning success? It's just so much more powerful. Just let the question hang there and then please cold into a story. Please go right into a story. All right, let's find out.
So before I go on, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute. See, I just did the preamble. And I want to ask you, why not have this conversational tone? We just talked about how it's good to have this easy conversational tone where you ask someone, okay, I have a question for you. You would do that with a friend over coffee. Why not on the red dot at TED Global?
Listen, it's a great question, and part of this comes down to the context of the room. So now, if you were speaking at a conference where, even if it was being filmed, if the filming was not the main point, if the point was like, I'm a keynote speaker, I get hired, they're often filming, in 2025, it's always also being live streamed, but the purpose is not the filming, the purpose is the people in the room. If it's been a particularly chatty group, or if it's been really warm, or if it's been a long day, if there's some context that it would feel like I wasn't paying attention to the room by not acknowledging something, there's an argument to be made that you could warm up with the audience by chatting. However, I have never felt it was necessary in the entire career I've had speaking. I have never felt the need to actually do it. I think that the question you just asked me is a false dichotomy between being conversational and being commanding or having presence or being powerful or being engaging. Conversational is a tone of voice, right? But the job of the script, and more importantly, the job of your first line is to gain attention. It is simply to gain attention. That's it. The first line buys you the second line. That's it. We're not going for engagement yet or anything else. It's just to get the audience's attention, to get them to look up from their phones and realize they should watch what's about to happen. Which means the first line needs to answer the question, is this worth my time? Right? Is this worth paying attention to? Which we talked about earlier. There's nothing in the entire speech that has more power than the first line because they don't even know what your voice sounds like yet. People are sitting there wondering, is she gonna talk fast or slow? Is she gonna have a high-pitched voice, low-pitched voice? Is it gonna be funny? Is it gonna be serious? Like, we have no idea. So the most amount of tension, you blow up a balloon, blow up a balloon, blow up a balloon. All of the tension, the most tension you'll ever have the whole time you're on stage is the seconds of silence before your opening words. And if the first thing you say is, so let me ask you a question. It's like you blew up a balloon, and then when you stabbed it, it went, wow. Like, you expect there to be a pop when you do that. You sacrifice the power of the talk, taking command of the room, in exchange for a very, very fleeting feeling of connection. You have the whole rest of the talk to build connection. The opening line is for earning attention.
Right. So the opening line is for power, and warmth builds up afterwards. Right.
Yes, and to the point, I even mentioned to you, it felt like maybe she's nervous, maybe she rehearsed looking nervous. I have no idea, but it immediately put me off because I was just like, is she nervous? Should I be nervous because she's going to be nervous? Like, I just didn't know where it was going right away, and you can't undo that. I know it's so cliche to say you don't get a second chance at a first impression, but it's like, you can't undo that. Just say the thing for your first line.
All right, let's see what she says next.
Oh, okay. I am the recently retired head coach of the UCLA women's gymnastics team, a position that I held for 29 years. Thank you. And during my tenure, I experienced a lot of winning. I led our team to 7 national championships. I was inducted into the UCLA Athletic Hall of Fame, and I was even voted the coach of the century by the Pac-12 Conference. Winning is really, really, really fun.
Okay. What do you think of how she went into that?
Okay, so what she just did was immediate authority building, which is interesting because we would not normally coach somebody to do that early. I mean, she literally had one line before saying, here's who I am, here's how successful I am, here's all my accolades, here's even this big award that I won. I mean, we would not normally do that. What I'm hesitating to analyze it because I don't know where it's going, and my suspicion is that the premise of her talk, which she actually got across, I mean, the economy of words of that first question was amazing, right? Like just the question itself is all winning success, told me what this talk is about. So she kind of skipped the first 45 to 60 seconds of an intro simply by having a perfect first question. And after the intro is when you would want to do a quick, who am I, why am I qualified to talk about
Meet
this?
the mentor.
Meet
right?
the mentor. Maybe you tell a story or you just do it. Like, we've had a client recently, Dr. Yasmin Saad, she's a psychologist in New York City who's very, very successful. And instead of telling a story about how she became a successful, she just said, I lead a team of 60 psychologists in New York City. We've been doing this for 20 years, and we've seen 3,118 patients or whatever it is, clients. I wanted her to put an actual number on it. I was like, find the number and put a real number on it. So there's an argument to be made for doing that. She did it way earlier. I think she did too much of it. She got 2 applause breaks, and we're still only know what her accolades are. I didn't need to know she was the coach of the century to follow or whatever. Like that felt gratuitous. I don't know. My guess, she doesn't look comfortable saying it. Somebody told her to say that, though. To me, you tell me, she doesn't look comfortable doing this section.
No, her gestures are small. She's keeping her hands very close to the body.
Yeah.
And when she was doing this, right? Counting, like enumerating the things, but very close to her core. And I like that she's building authority, but it's a little too much for my taste. She could have done that more economically as well. Right?
Yeah.
So I've been the head coach for this many years. I've led our team to this many gold medals.
That's it.
Something like that. That would have.
We've won 419 games, including 27 championships, whatever. And she could have just paused and went.
Also put the spotlight on the team, like on the people who have benefited from her work, not just herself. So there's some clumsiness.
That's interesting.
That.
It could have been over X amount of years I've worked with Y amount of student athletes who have gone on to win this many games, including these many championships.
Exactly.
In one sentence, she could have done that. And then she could have paused and went, winning is fun.
Is a lot of fun, right? Like,
winning is a lot of fun.
Well.
Right?
She did that well.
Well.
It took too long to get there.
Yes, because it's interesting. Because then she could have hit that opening question without the preamble, hit one sentence that gave the spotlight to the team, and hit all the critical characteristics. And then she could have just gone, winning is really fun. And it would have gotten a big laugh.
Exactly.
And we would have learned everything we needed to know to get into this talk.
Yeah. All right. Here we go.
But I am here to share my insight. Winning does not always equal success. All across America and around the world,
Womp womp.
we have a crisis.
Yeah.
Womp womp. I'm no longer interested. I feel bad
Spoiler
saying
alert.
that. I feel bad saying, yeah, right? It's like, hey, audience, I know we're only 4 minutes into the movie, but here's what happens in the last scene. Okay, now let's watch the movie.
Now let me tell you why, kind of thing.
Yeah, but
right?
now let me tell you why the end of the movie is going to be like this. Now listen, there's actually movies that do that. There's whodunits, right? The opening scene, sometimes we actually find out, sometimes it's a mystery to find out who did it, but there are movies that subvert that and tell you in the opening scene who did it, and we go on a journey to find out how it was accomplished or something. There's a different question.
How they got away with it, or why, or the motivation behind it, or...
Right. But in this case, she said, we're still in what? In the first minute, essentially?
Yeah, minute 11.
Right, if you take away the TED intro and you take away the preamble, we're well under a minute. And she just said, I have all these accolades and credentials, and I'm here to tell you winning isn't everything. It's like, all right, answered the question.
Can we all go home now?
Can we go home now? I actually, there's nothing left for me to wonder about. It's like she's starting a new talk at this point now, right? Because it's like now she's got to set a whole new context, and I know what it's leading to. So all she could do here is convince me of something that, try to convince me something I'm either not convinced of. She says winning isn't everything. The problem with that is it's not controversial enough to wonder how she came to that conclusion. If it was a really controversial assertion and she just told me that she has all these credentials and then she said something really counterintuitive, I'd be curious, okay, make your case. That would get me in. But winning isn't everything. I'm like, well, okay, yeah. I mean, they taught us that when we played t-ball. Like, I taught my kid that, like, when he was 3. Like, I already know that. So that doesn't make me interested at all, and which is a shame because she's the kind of person who I'm like, oh, I bet you have all kinds of stuff I'd be interested in learning from, and I might continue watching out of sheer curiosity.
Exactly. So it's a real pity that the introduction spills the beans in this way from the very beginning.
Yeah, and I'm always curious how speakers at this level, which is not to say she's a professional speaker. She does not read as a professional speaker. She reads as someone who's been very successful and who's been asked to give a professional speech.
Yeah.
At this level, on this stage in particular, there are so many people involved and so much support. And it always baffles me that these kind of what I consider very elementary speech writing mistakes can make its way into a talk at this level, especially for someone like that who deserves a better script.
Absolutely. Now, let's see if it gets a little better.
In the win at all cost cultures that we have created in our schools, in our businesses, in politics, winning at all cost has become acceptable. As a society, we honor the people at the top of the pyramid. We effusively applaud those people who win championships and elections and awards. But sadly, quite often, those same people are leaving their institutions as damaged human beings. Sadly, with straight A's, kids are leaving school damaged. With awards and medals, athletes often leave their teams damaged, emotionally, mentally, not just physically. And with huge profits, employees often leave their companies damaged. We have become so hyper-focused on that end result, and when the end result is a win, the human component of how we got there often gets swept under the proverbial rug, and so does the damage. So, I'm calling for a timeout. Timeout. We need to redefine success.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing about that grabbed me. It felt like she was repeating the same thing. Well, she was literally repeating the same thing over and over and over again. The point only needed to be made once, that people can leave winners but damaged. Well, actually, what I did need were examples. She wasn't giving examples. She was making assertion after assertion. She wasn't backing any of it up. She didn't offer any statistics to support it. And more to the point, if Francisco would hear, he'd be just like tearing his hair out right now, because this was the opportunity to tell a story. I mean, this was it.
She will, but much later.
I'm sure she will.
Yeah.
How could she not in a talk like this? But this was the time to do it. And man, oh God, everything that we just talked about. Imagine the economy of this talk. If she had done the things in the intro we talked about in the span of 20 seconds, she could have made it through the premise and her authority, which would have got me interested. And this person's got a unique perspective on this. And then if she had hard cut into, let me tell you about Henry or whatever, right? And if she had gone into a story of a student athlete, she could have changed the identifying characteristics to avoid whatever. She could have gone into a story that actually showed us the damage and then come out of the story to make the point, we have created a winning at all cost culture and it's not working. And here's the statistics to support it. Those ideas in that order, my guess is all of this stuff is somewhere in this talk. This is that thing that I've said so many times. It's just like the right ideas in the wrong order are the wrong ideas. Like they have to be in the right order. She's not answering the questions I'm asking in my mind as I'm asking them. She's going to ask them later when I'm no longer thinking about them. Oh, this is a frustrating one because I
know.
I'm fired up, and you've seen me dismiss a talk and not. Like, there are talks that I watch and I'm like, well, that wasn't very good.
You
And I just move
so
on with my life.
Yeah, it's true.
This
but
one's
you want
frustrating
because
I want this
right?
one to be great. I know that she's holding stuff that I really want to hear. And I'm just like, answer the questions I'm actually asking.
It's the content of this talk, like the message behind it and the stories she shares later. And, they're so good. They are just missing the right setup. And I feel the same. It's like content-wise, idea-wise, it's one of my favorite talks. But the execution is really a missed opportunity. And I wanted to show you. So this came out 5 years ago, and it only has 200,000 views. So that's telling, right? And it did not kind of pass that test of long-term engagement with the audience.
Now listen, our TEDx speakers speaking at, TEDx Library, North Dakota, that kind of thing, like 200,000 views, massive, especially for someone who's like a small business owner or an expert looking at the word out, that's massive. And we should not downplay 200,000 people is a bananas amount of people. However, at TED Global,
for this stage
and with someone with her access to networks and communities, like the amount of people that when she or whoever representing her sent this link out, my guess is the first minute or two did not grab enough people to share it, right? Which is like it's all about did they send it to anybody? Because if you get 20,000 people to watch it on day one, you get 20,000 views. But if none of them sent it to anybody, it dies at 20,000 or it trickles to whatever. But if 20,000 people watch it, and even 20% of them, right, if 4,000 of those people sent it or shared it on their social, and every person's connected with on average 1,000 people, right, the math on the network effect is bananas. And so 200,000 strikes me as low for somebody on this stage with that many years behind it with her access to resources.
Yeah. Everybody, go watch all of these talks.
Yes.
Learn what you will from them.
I'm definitely excited to go watch hers. What was her name? I missed it on the screen.
Valorie Kondos Field.
Okay, Valerie. Okay.
Is her name. I'll send you the link. Yeah.
Great. So, what did we learn today?
Yeah. A conclusion for me is that we have to be careful about who we look up to. When we look at these big talks on big stages with impressive numbers, we shouldn't believe that they're doing everything that would work for us, right? A lot of times these are people with a lot of clout who, have had different circumstances that lead to the success of their talk. And if you're an expert, but not necessarily well known, I think we need to be really, really careful of how we apply those models because they won't necessarily work the same way.
Yeah, and my favorite analogy with this is when aspiring singers, let's pick rock music because it's my preferred genre, so I just know it better. An aspiring rock singer should not try to emulate Jon Bon Jovi. Which is not to say he isn't one of the most successful rock musicians in history. He absolutely is, and Bon Jovi's one of my favorites. It's to say he was singing wrong. He was using poor technique, and he blew out his voice and lost it and never recovered. And he blew it out early. He blew it out just years into their touring. They had to immediately stop. He couldn't do half of the parts from their very famous songs very quickly.
I did not know that.
By today, it's gone. He basically can't sing. He's like talk singing. So it's not to say that Jon Bon Jovi wasn't phenomenally successful. He's like literally one of the most successful musicians of all time. It's if you want a career as a professional singer, you should not emulate his technique because he was successful in spite of poor technique, not because of it, right? And I think that that's something that we miss a lot, especially when speakers are looking up to these big talks. Like, you don't know what algorithmic, lightning bolt struck that day, the zeitgeist. Even my talk, which at some point will, people look at my talk and they want to emulate mine. I'm like, there's a bunch of issues in that talk. I wouldn't tell anybody to write their talk the same way that I wrote mine in 2015. I got really lucky, and that's why I don't tell people to go watch my talk if they want to be a TEDx speaker. I say, learn this framework that we've proven works consistently over and over again, and don't watch my talk because it doesn't follow that framework, right?
Right. So what should people do? What's our advice? What's your advice in terms of introductions?
The number one most important thing is the first words out of your mouth, they have to answer the question, will this be relevant to me, right? Will this talk be relevant to me? Is this worth my time? And so the first words out of your mouth have to indicate the premise of the talk, either what the audience wants or what they're struggling with or what they are afraid of happening. Something like that has to be indicated in the first words. And if you're going to open with a story, as opposed to explicitly saying something, the story, like Jess's did, the story should leave the breadcrumbs to indicate the problem that is essentially the premise of the talk.
And how it's about
how it's about me. So make sure that as quickly as possible from the time you start talking on stage, the audience understands how it's relevant to them.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I see so many talks that are not about me, the audience, right? They're about the speaker. The speaker is the hero, and they remain the hero until the end of the talk. So word of warning there.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks for showing these to me. Hey, anybody who's listening or watching this, if you like the idea of us doing these analysis videos, these react videos, let us know. And if there's talks that you want us to react to that you've seen, whether they're TED or keynotes or presentations online, anything, drop a link in the chat or send us a DM. You can find us on the socials. Everything's down there. Thank you for coming on this journey.
Thank you for being on this journey.
See you on the speaker path.